Good day, everyone. I am Miss Dency Tuastumban, and today we will talk about the standardized test scoring, cumulative and averaging system grading, and the DPID Order Number 8 series of 2015. The grade computation and the steps in grade computation will be tackled by Miss Vidad later. First, let us talk about the standardized testing. What is a standardized test? It is any form of test that requires all test takers to answer the same questions or a selection of questions from common bank of questions. It is also primarily associated with large-scale tests administered to a sizable population of students such as multiple choice tests. Teachers and schools perform standardized tests to measure student achievement, compare performance across regions, and identify strengths and weaknesses in learning. These tests provide data for accountability, guiding us future educators in adjusting instruction and improving programs. An example of a standardized test is the National Achievement Test, or NAT. It is administered to evaluate the academic performance of students in key subjects such as English, Filipino, math, science, or other subjects. It provides schools and Department of Education with data to assess the effectiveness of their curriculum and teaching strategies. So there are multiple types of standardized tests. First, the achievement test. Achievement tests are used to evaluate what children have learned in a particular subject area. These tests include those created by states to assess mastery of state academic content standards, as well as general tests. The National Achievement Test is the best example of this one. As I have said earlier, it is administered to evaluate the academic performance of students in key subjects. Therefore, it evaluates how well learning objectives have been met. So the second one is the diagnostic test. These tests are used to identify strengths and deficiencies in certain areas such as reading or math. The PhilIRI, or the Philippine Informal Reading Inventory, is an example of a diagnostic test. This tool is used to assess students' reading levels, comprehension, and fluency at the beginning of the school year. The third one is the aptitude test. This assesses what pupils have learned, but instead of focusing on specific subject matter studies in school, the test items emphasize linguistic, numeric, and problem-solving abilities. I'm sure you are all familiar with the aptitude test. We can observe this type of test in the admission examination during our application for the university. We can observe numbers with multiple patterns such as 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. In this set, we can say that the pattern follows odd numbers. This type of test is designed to assess reasoning and problem-solving skills. So how is standardized testing scored? The first one, norm reference test, which compares an individual's performance with the performance of others. So the norm reference test to compare a student's performance to that of a larger population, which is called the norm group. The goal is to rank students determining who performed better or worse relative to their peers. The INCAE, or the National Career Assessment Examination, ranks students based on aptitude for specific paths. The second one is the criterion reference test. These tests compare a person's performance to a set of objectives. Anyone who meets the criterion can get a high score. So the criterion reference test, on the other hand, measure a student's performance against a fixed set of standards or criteria, focusing on mastery of specific skills or knowledge. So there are types of standardized scoring methods. The first one, the raw scores. So the formula, there is no specific formula. It's simply the count of the correct answers. So if a student answers 35 questions correctly out of 50, the raw score is 35. The second one is the percent correct or ratio data. The formula is percent correct is equals to the raw score all over the total possible score times 100. So for students that got 35 out of 50, percent correct is equals to 35 over 50 times 100 is equals to 70%. The third one is the percentile rank. The formula is P all over 100 times N plus 1. So the P here stands or represents the percentile and N represents the total number of items in the data. So how to calculate percentile? Before you can calculate percentile rank, you need to know the percentile of the item you are ranking. You can find the percentile of a specific score using the formula percentile is equals to number of values below score divided by the total number of scores times 100. So example, we have a group of 10 students. You can see in the screen who scored on a test, and we want to find the percentile of the student who scored 85. So there are 10 students, and find how many students scored below 85. We can see that 6 students scored below 85. So we can now apply the formula. Percentile is equals to the number of values below score divided by total number of scores times 100. We can see that the percentile is equals to 65%. The given data, percentile, P is equals to 65. From the first example, we can see that we calculated the percentile of the student who scored 85. The total number of items, or the N, is equals to 10 because we have a group of 10 students. So the formula for percentile, as I have said, the percentile rank is equals to P over 100 times N plus 1. As you can see in the screen, the percentile rank is 7.15. The fourth one is the z-scores. Z-scores show how far a score deviates from the mean, measured in units of standard deviation. A z-score of 0 indicates a score of the mean, while positive and negative values show how far a score is from the mean. So the z-score is equals to x minus m all over s. So data set, we have a data set. You can see in the screen 52, 55, 50, 61, and 48. So the steps, calculate the mean. Of course, mean is 53.2. Subtract the mean and square each result. So we now have the square root of the mean, which are 1.424, 3.24, 10.24, 60.84, and 27.4. So calculate the average of square deviations. Sum of square deviations, we have 102.8 or 102.8. Since this is a sample, divided by n minus 1 is equals to 5 minus 1 is equals to 4. So the variance now is the 25.7. So take the square root, it becomes 5.7, and so the sample standard deviation for this data set is approximately 5.7. So, what is the importance of z-scores in standardized tests? Of course, the first one, interpretation of performance. Second one, identification of outliers. Fourth one, normalization of data. And lastly, creation of percentiles. So, the fifth one is the STA9 or the standard 9. A standardized score that divides a distribution of scores into 9 intervals and is used to simplify and summarize a set of scores. Particularly in educational assessments, STA9 scores range from 1 to 9 with 5 being the average score. The intervals are based on standard deviations from the mean. You can see the z-score, STA9 score, and the percentage of scores. For negative 1.75 and lower, we can see that its STA9 score is 1 and the percentage of scores is bottom 4.4% rather. And for 1.75 higher, we can see that the STA9 score is 9 and its percentage of scores is top 4%. So let us now have the cumulative and averaging system grading. What is a grading system? The grading system in education involves assigning standardized measurements to varying levels of achievement. This system involves assigning scores, marks, or letters like A, B, C to represent how well students have met the learning objectives of a course or subject. The first one, cumulative grading system. The grade of a student in a grading period equals his current grading period grade, which is assumed to have the cumulative effects of the previous grading periods. The second one, the averaging grading system, which is the grade of the student in a particular grading period equals the average of the grades obtained in the prior grading periods in the current grading period. So unweighted averaging simply adds up the scores from all assessments and divides them by the total number of assessments. Weighted averaging gives different assignments or exams different weights, such as projects being more heavily weighted than quizzes. Each component's weight is determined and the weighted average is calculated based on these weights. As you can see in the screen, for cumulative grading system, the score reflects the overall performance over the entire course, and any improvement or decline is seen across all assessments. For the average grading system, the grade here is simply the average of the individual assessments. The student's performance across all tasks is equally weighted. So, if we compare the two, in the cumulative system, some tests or assignments like the final exam are more important than others, like homework or quizzes. The final grade depends on your accumulated total points, but some assessments have more weight. For the average system, every test or assignment counts equally toward your final grade. In the English class, every test, essay, midterm, presentation, final exam had equal weight, so the grade was just the average of all your scores. Moving on, let's tackle about the Deep Order number 8 series of 2015. What is the Deep Order all about? So the Department of Education, or the Deep Order number 8 series of 2015, titled Policy Guidelines on Classroom Assessment for the K-12 Basic Education Program, provides a comprehensive framework for assessing student learning in the Philippines under the K-12 curriculum. It outlines the principle and guidelines for both formative and summative assessments across all grade levels from kindergarten to grade 12.